Great tools constantly evolve to meet new challenges, and electronic health records are no different. As capabilities are added or new requirements take effect, practices must stay informed of impacts to workflows, especially when they relate to patient safety, security, and compliance. On today's edition of the eClinicalWorks podcast, we examine how eCW is making it easier for teams to keep up with critical updates affecting day-to-day operations. And joining me today is Paula Bigwood, Nurse and Deputy Safety Officer on eCW's Clinical Risk Management team. Paula, thanks so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here.
Well, as someone with such a broad background caring for patients, why is the safety, security, and compliance dashboard so important?
So, Adam, eClinicalWorks patient safety advisories and other notices are the important way in which eClinicalWorks communicates with clients about potential patient safety related issues and how to use the eClinicalWorks software. There were some concerns that were identified regarding the difficulty that practices were having to sort through and read all the advisories. And they also felt that many of the advisories were not pertinent to their practice. So eClinicalWorks has a goal to assist our clients to be able to read the advisories and implement actions to ensure patient safety. And the goal of this dashboard is really to provide that central location to efficiently view and enable patient safety advisories that are pertinent to each practice.
Well, the dashboard that you're talking about has recently been redesigned to achieve many of those goals that you mentioned there. Where can the safety, security, and compliance dashboard be found?
That the safety and security dashboard is found on the support portal. So users can go to the support portal to the patient safety, security, and compliance tab. If they select the advisories, it will open up the dashboard for them.
Excellent. And here we're looking at the dashboard now. Tell me a little bit about how this has been redesigned to make things easier for users.
Sure. So the safety and security and compliance dashboard has actually 6 tabs. Basically, what eCW has done is they've separated out some of these safety advisories. So, for example, you'll see a tab for the patient safety advisories, for the regulatory certification, and for security advisories. Separating out these advisories helps the user to actually pare down the information that they'll need to look at in these advisories. So that's been one big feature, I think, for the users, is that they now have the ability to look at these advisories according to issues. So security issues, the user will go to the security advisories tab. Regulatory certification issues, they'll go to that tab. And then the patient safety advisories are underneath that patient safety advisories tab. In addition to that, the patient safety advisories tabs do have like this eye icon, which provides additional information to our users in regards to information within the tab. Also within each tab, there's several columns, and those columns also have that eye icon. Another feature that's important for the users to know is that in the patient safety advisories tab, as well as the regulatory certification and security advisories tab, there are numbers on those tabs. Those numbers indicate to our users the number of advisories that are within each of those tabs. If we look at the patient safety advisories tab, users now have the ability to sort the advisories and display the advisories by certain functions. So if they wanted to view all open advisories and selected modules, they can select this radio button. If they wanted to view all opened reported advisories in their practice only, they'll be able to look at those based on this radio button. If they want to just look at all fixed general release version advisories, they'll select this button, and then all open advisories in all modules. Again, the ability to have the option to select how you want to display these advisories, as I mentioned, really does help the user to pare down the number of advisories that are within that tab. Also within the tabs, users have various columns for which they can sort and they can select advisories. So for example, in the JIRA ID column, you can see that a user can search by the JIRA ID number if they know that ID number. They can free text in that number. And again, that really helps them to be more efficient in searching for those various advisories that they might be looking for.
Yeah, looking at the columns here, impacted modules or users, I think you're marking out different user types that
Correct.
might, or roles. So, if I wanted to see something that was affecting my, billing or my front office, I could find that there and know exactly what I'm looking for.
Correct. That's correct. Yep. So there's been a lot of features that have been added to these various tabs to really, again, as we said, to have a central location for individuals to look at these advisories. I think another great feature of this dashboard is the Patient Safety Officer and Advisory Statistics dashboard. So if you take a look at this dashboard here, I think for patient safety officers, many times a patient safety officer might want to view statistics that are specific to their role. And they might want to gather additional information about the number of advisories that have been reviewed in each category. So you can see here on the left pane, the patient safety officers can view the patient safety advisories that have been reviewed by the practice and that have been reviewed by the patient safety officer in both that month or overall. And this is really important because we want to make sure that the patient safety officers are advised as to who in their practice is looking at their advisories, and really encourage them if they're seeing maybe a low response of reviewing these advisories, to encourage them to look at these advisories. As well, they can look and see how many of the advisories have been reviewed in the regulatory certification tab, as well as the security advisories tab. The ability to look at the patient safety offices. So here you can see in the right-hand side that the patient safety officer for the practice would be located here. If the user wanted to edit their patient safety officer list, they could do that right here in this tab by selecting the Edit Patient Safety Officer list. It now will open up the active and inactive users list. Here, users can deactivate users if they wanted to, so they would just select the patient safety officer in their practice and they could go ahead and delete that user. So there's a lot of good features within this tab that really helps to coordinate and really helps the patient safety officer role to be identified and to be edited if possible. In the past, the users used to have to go to a whole different area within the support panel in order to identify those patient safety officers. Now, this feature really brings everything into one specific dashboard where a lot of different functions can be done. Also, I just wanted to show here, we can identify, the patient safety officers can identify the timeframes in which they're available for calls. And this is really important because when there are issues that are identified, we don't want to be playing that telephone tag. We'd like to be able to know when we can reach an individual so that we can talk about these issues. Another feature that's important in this dashboard is the ability to enable advisories and view practice version information. So when a user selects this tab, which is the 5th tab in the dashboard, you can see here that there are all of the modalities within the dashboard. So let's say, for example, in a practice, you don't use the ASC, you're not an ASC user. You could disable those advisories from being able to be viewed within their various columns. So for example, if you only wanted to, even if you only wanted to see audiology, you could disable every other modality and only look at the audiology advisories. Again, another great feature and way for individuals to be able to hone in on those advisories that are very important for their practice. I also wanted to mention that these settings are sticky settings. So if the user were to leave this tab, those settings would remain unless they came back in and physically changed those. And then the last tab in the dashboard is the priority support cases. This is, I think, extremely important for us to be able to pull that out from other advisories. These are the advisories where we would see the greatest risk for patient harm. So being able to pull those advisories out and give our users the ability to just view those in one spot really helps us to ensure that they'll be able to understand what is the issue, how the issue is going to be fixed, so that we can continue to keep our patients safe as we're using our product.
Well, Paula, I think these enhancements that you've talked about are certainly going to make a difference for people's ability to keep up with those important notices and advisories. I think we've done a great job here separating out the things that are relevant for specific user types or for specific use cases, different things like that. So I think this will be a very useful tool for customers and users going forward. Thanks so much for taking the time to show us how this is set up and how this could work. And we appreciate you very much.
Great, thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about any of the topics we discussed here on today's episode, you can visit my.eClinicalWorks.com, which of course is where this very handy dashboard is located, or you can speak with your strategic account manager. And don't forget to subscribe to the eClinicalWorks podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or my.eClinicalWorks.com, or wherever you find your podcasts, to hear more conversations about ways that you can get the most out of your eClinicalWorks software and hear from customers just like yourselves who are putting these tools into use each and every day and getting the most out of them in their practices. For the eClinicalWorks podcast, I'm Adam Silati, and thanks for watching.